The Ohio Senate voted earlier this afternoon to override Governor Mike DeWine's veto of House Bill 68. Now, we've talked a lot about this bill. This is a bill that now will soon be law, as it's now overridden the governor's veto in both chambers. It protects children from experimental gender procedures that are being pushed by the transgender activist. And this measure also prohibits boys and men from occupying in spaces, locker rooms that are designated for females and from competing in female sports. Now, the Senate needed 3/5 of the chamber to override the governor's veto and easily achieved that by a vote, I believe, of 24-8. Joining me now to discuss this is Ohio State Senator Andy Brenner. He represents Ohio's 19th Senate District. He also chairs the Ohio Senate Education Committee. Senator Brenner, welcome to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tony. I very much appreciate being on.
So pretty good news. Ohio now comes, I think it's the 23rd state to pass a SAFE Act type legislation to protect children. In your opinion, why is this legislation so important for protecting children in Ohio?
Simply put, the scientific evidence is not there. I gave a floor speech about a month ago in the Senate when we passed it to point out the fact that Sweden, the country of Sweden, which started and legalized transgender surgeries back in 1972, pulled out of doing any kind of hormone therapy or anything 2 years ago. And this is a liberal country of Sweden doing this. I asked the doctors who testified. I actually sat in on the committee that heard the bill. I was a fill-in for a couple of the members who weren't able to make it. So I sat through 8 hours of opponent testimony. So I asked the doctors, please show me the scientific research that backs up the utilization of hormone treatment and all this in transgender surgery. They couldn't defend the transgender surgery for minors, but they said that they would supply me scientifically based research that backed up what they were doing. I never got it. And I spoke on the Senate floor today and mentioned the fact that, there are studies out there that say that there isn't enough scientific evidence to prove that this helps reduce suicides or depression. And in fact, it's very anecdotal at best. So, it's important for that. It's obviously important for Save Women's Sports. I think even Governor DeWine was probably in favor of that part of the bill. We should not be having, transgender boys competing in girls' sports. It's just not appropriate. And it gives them a competitive advantage. It's very obvious, what should be very obvious. But we did have a lot of the Democrats on the floor today basically spoke out in strong opposition to the veto override. I think that's, it's unfortunate. They say they're the party of science, but when it comes to science, to things like abortion and, conception, they don't look at the science then at that point. And then the same thing with, transgender stuff for kids. I mean, it's just, it's surprising to me that, we get that kind of backlash. We did have protesters outside the State House yelling and screaming and chanting against it. And we had a few people disrupt the Senate session this afternoon, but it wasn't too bad.
The vote pretty overwhelming. What were you hearing? Were senators hearing from voters in the state encouraging them to take this step?
Absolutely. In fact, I had my staff tally up all the people who wanted me to override the governor versus those who did not want me to override the governor. And we had several hundred people reach out to our office, individuals who wanted us to override the governor. And probably about 10% of that were to do the opposite, which was to agree with the governor. So within my district, it was overwhelming support to override the governor.
I've known the governor for years. In fact, I actually campaigned with him a number of years ago when he first ran for governor. Surprised that he took this position in vetoing this common sense legislation. Were you surprised by the veto?
To some degree, no, because the community, the transgender community, the families went in. I mean, they testified, and it was very emotional. And I know he met with many of them, and they were pleading with him, saying, "Oh, the science is there. This is helping us. It's helping save lives." And the governor, before, like when it came to masking and the lockdowns a few years ago, he listened to the scientific community, or at least what he thought was the science and the experts, and he followed their advice. And I think that's what he did here. He was wrong on it, and they don't really have the data to back up what they're doing.
You're absolutely right, because we've done a lot of research. In fact, we put together the first SAFE Act in Arkansas a number of years ago, and you're right, the science still is not there. The science is on the side of the fact that boys are created boys and girls are created girls, and we need to support that. Senator, thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a part of creating some good news out of the Buckeye State.
Thank you very much.